also, so what is this all like? I don't know if you can give a little bit of background about what this is for and what your
Yeah,
plans
so
are.
I'm getting my master's in sports administration,
Mm-hmm.
and so one of my classes that I'm in this summer is for like college athletics,
Okay.
and it's kind of just like going over talking with specific roles within college athletics and kind of do a paper and like comparing and contrasting. I'm also going to talk to Stephanie Young at Bowling Green.
Nice.
Um, and then kind of
She's
just I want to
awesome.
kind of compare, like the Division 1, Division 2 coaching
Mm-hmm.
and kind of all that. So I'm just, kind of getting some background information and
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff,
of course.
just to kind of get some insight into, what specific roles and what you guys do. So
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty much what all it is. But yeah,
How's the grad program going for you?
it's good. I like
Yeah.
it. It's been because I graduated back in 2018, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming back and after the pandemic and everything. So when Catherine asked me to come back, I was like, we'll see. But it's been good so far, and I've
Okay,
enjoyed it a
good.
lot more than I thought I initially would at the beginning.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
have a year left, so it'll be good, and then one more year my GA. So yeah.
yeah. Well, that's awesome. And I know Catherine's awesome. She's always been really gracious to me as well.
Yeah,
So
no,
I'm glad you're with her.
she is awesome, and I mean I've obviously played for her and known her, so
Mm,
it's fun coming back to the program that you played at because you learn
right.
so much and then coming on the
Yeah.
opposite side.
Yeah.
So it's
Do
helped
you
out a
feel
lot.
do you feel like you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know how it was on the other side in like a coach's shoes, or were you like, yeah, I kind of had an idea?
I feel like I kind of had an idea. Like if it's
Yeah.
not as hard as I thought. It's just
Right.
like it's interesting, being the coach and not the player. It's
Yeah.
kind of more enjoyable in a way. But I
No
enjoy it.
pressure about the on the golf
No, I
course.
know. It's just like
Yeah.
I have pressure of everybody else, but not myself when I'm out there. Um,
Right.
it's like you can always go back on like the memories. I mean, Catherine talk about when we go places all the time and like, oh my God, this happened and this happened. And
Hmm.
it's so much fun, but I
Yeah.
really enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot more than I ever thought I would because I had
That's good.
no intentions of like ever coaching or
Right.
I never thought I would be here. So,
Right. Well, there
but
you go. Things
everything
change.
happens for a reason.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Well, perfect. Well, I really appreciate you joining me today and thank Catherine for, passing along your contact information.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
kind of, I just want to talk about like what's your background, where you're from, your education, and then kind of a little bit what you're professional and what you've done so far.
Yeah, so my background's always the long story, so brace yourself. But so I'm originally from Zambia,
Mhm.
which is Southern Africa. And I was born in the UK. And I basically started golf by getting kicked off the boys' cricket team when I was really, really young. I was a tomboy. I always wanted to play with the boys because the boys were way more competitive than the girls back then. And long story short, my mom was like, golf must be the same thing. It's a stick and a ball,
Mhm.
and you don't need a team. So, you know, tried golf. I think we found some rusted up. This is no joke. We found a warehouse, and there was some rusted up blades. There were those woods
Yeah.
with the nails in them, like the ones that actually look like wood.
Uh-huh.
And I think I had a Big Bertha driver that we found. And somebody was like, I can like cut them down for you. And I didn't even know the concept of like, those clubs are too long for you. But anyway, I didn't know the difference. So I was like, oh my God, golf clubs, these are great. And anyway, started to learn golf kind of in a raw way. We didn't in Zambia, we don't have any certified instructors. You know what I
Really?
mean? Like
Yeah.
nobody who could say, okay, this is where you need to start with the
Yeah.
fundamentals, and this is how we can, progress. So it's
Interesting.
just kind of like people who are like, hey, keep your head down,
Hmm.
which is like, how do you really teach a beginner that?
Yeah.
So I learned golf very raw.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a lot of fundamentals, even when I was a bit better of a player. So then it progressed to um, me joining the social Saturday, tournaments of
Yeah.
Medal and Stableford. And a few people were like, oh, some ladies were talking about you and they think that you should play with them on their lady days tournaments.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, sure. And then after that, it just kind of evolved to me realizing that I could represent my country. So I played those tournaments where I could be in the order of merit and qualify. And then at that point, when I played internationally, that was when I realized there's a lot more competition out there and I'm not the best in my country. I mean, there's more people out there for me to, compete against. And then I think it was in Egypt where there was a player from Lynn University,
Mhm.
and she was like, have you ever thought of playing, I was playing with her, and she was like, have you ever thought of playing college golf? And I was like, I have no idea what college golf is. What is it? And I was 16 at the time.
Mhm.
And so she said, oh my God, she's like, I'm in college golf right now, and you basically earn a degree while playing at the highest level of amateur golf, yada, yada. And so I was like, this is so good to be true, And then I just kind of when I went back home, I kind of tried to look up as many things as I could to understand what college golf is. I emailed like the best Division I Power 5 schools, not realizing that you got to go through the NCAA clearinghouse. I had no idea what that is. So it was very like backward, my journey into college golf. Like I was so naive, I didn't know anything.
Mhm.
And then I think it was it was getting really close to when I had, I would be losing my window until I would be ineligible.
Yeah.
And the coach was like, hey, listen, if you can get here in time, you can have a full ride. And so I was like, shoot, I'll do whatever I need to do. And that was in junior college in Western Texas College. And yeah, my mom was like, are you sure? It's like the middle of nowhere in Texas. We don't know anybody there. I'm the only child. So I was like, you know what, this is what I love. And I feel like I should try it at least, and see where it goes. And education is very important to us. So I went to Western Texas for 2 years. Then I went to University of Louisiana in Monroe for 2 years. And then I went to Central Michigan as a GA. And I think it was when I was in Louisiana, that's when I was like, wait, you can coach and teach golf and do that as a living. Cause like back in Zambia, like that's not how you make a living. There's no instructors, there's no coaches. And then I actually realized that you also are truly guiding a player more than instructing them, right? There's a difference between a college coach and an instructional coach. So I think that's where I was like, I feel like this can be a passion of mine. And so, in my senior year, I talked to my coach then, who was Joni Stevens, and she was like, why don't you try doing a GA position, see how you feel, and you can earn your master's degree while you're at it too, because it's very different from when you're a player. And I was a player who was very tunnel vision. Like it was what I needed to do. I didn't realize what anybody else was doing. So for me, when I was a GA, I was like, oh my gosh, like there's so much more to do as a coach than I realized, So then Central Michigan, I had a really great experience, especially in my second year. And I was like, yeah, this is definitely something I want to do for sure. And Catherine was one of the coaches who really helped me right at the end, to try and, she helped me with any posting, anything she heard, she would send off stuff to me. And then I applied. So when I graduated, I applied to everything and anything, even head coaching jobs, because everybody was saying, just apply it. You never know. And I knew I wasn't ready for a head coaching job. But I was like, maybe I'll get some experience and exposure, maybe down the line they'll be like, oh, we remember interviewing you, And then I got the job at Rollins, and I was actually down to two positions I got offered. And then I ended up, taking the Rollins job, and I've been there for 2 years. It feels like it's only been maybe less than a year just because of COVID. Like we haven't even been able to. Right, but I've been there for 2 years. So it's been, I feel like for me, when I hear other coaches' journeys and then I tell them my journey, they're like, what? Like that's very unique, you know?
Yeah.
So I would say that that's probably my uniqueness, that it's like, it's always a journey. So.
Yeah, especially, because people grow up and knowing all about college golf and you
Right.
had no clue about anything.
Morgan, I had no idea what the NCAA clearinghouse was 9 years ago, and I'm supposed to be telling all these recruits, what's your NCAA ID number? And I'm like, if you don't know, that's totally cool. And they're like, we know.
That's so funny. Yeah, no, that is awesome though that you've came this far with it all.
Yeah, so it's cool, and it continues to be a wild ride, which
Yeah.
I'm no problem. I'm embracing it now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, perfect. So like what I guess to say like your typical, day to day, like what I guess when you're in season and off season, what does your in season kind of look like compared to your off season?
I think in season is kind of like, okay, this is, go time. So you're hardly having people practice in terms of like, we're not trying to be on the range for hours and stuff like that. I mean, at Rollins, our practice, we never really go on the range. If you want to go on the range, that's outside of our practice. But we qualify more.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to get them to practice to play, right? If you practice you get good at what you practice. And usually, since I've been at Rollins, we've had a really big roster, like 10 to 12 girls. So if we're taking 5 kids to a tournament, we really need to figure out who's going to travel.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times in the fall, we travel by plane, especially to like Boston College, the Tar Heel, which is a huge tournament for us because it's against all the top Division I schools. And so as a Division II, we're like, okay, let's see where we stack up. But anyway, so I think we focus a lot on playing. We don't work out as much. We kind of work out depending on our schedule, so our conditioning coach is like, okay, if we have a tournament coming up, let's not kill them. But when we come back, let's maybe focus on stretching and then we can go hard because there'll be time to recover. So I think that's the main thing in terms of working with the team. That's the main thing. That's the difference between off season and in season. And then recruiting, I feel like for recruiting, I'm always working on recruiting either way. We're in a really unique situation now because Division I couldn't recruit for the longest time. And we took advantage of that. I think I felt like Rollins more than anyone took advantage of that. So we're pretty much full as a roster. So while all the Division I schools, it seems like, are like, let's go out there, any tournament, we got to go. We're more like, I think we're just going to stick with the big tournaments because we've already done a lot of the work.
Now, was your recruiting deadline, was it different than Division I's then? Because I know like Division I just kind of lifted up here in the last month or so.
Yeah, so we started, I think we were able to recruit before the end of the year.
Yeah, it's like Division like June 1st.
And yeah, you guys were just recently. So since then, we've been like really into recruiting because we're like, we obviously compete against Division I, right? So we were like, this is our chance to really not be in the shadows of Division I. Like when kids see us, they're only going to see us. They're not going to see any other Division I teams. And I think that was a really good strategy for us. And so we've brought in 4 new players.
That's awesome.
Which is a lot for an incoming class.
Yeah, usually 2 or 3 is a good number.
Yeah, usually 2 is a good number. So got a big roster.
And then I guess for your off season, like what are you guys typically doing?
So off season, we usually allow. So we're not trying to definitely I'm not trying to overhaul anybody's swing. I think it's like they're good enough where if they can get in college at this time, and I'm not trying to change their swing. So if they want to work on anything that's a little deeper than playing, this is the time to do it. Usually a lot of the girls, there might be one outlier, but usually all the girls have swing instructors that they've been working with for a very long time. So typically it seems like we'll work with them to say they're like, okay, on Wednesdays and Fridays, we want to go work with our instructor. So it's like, you know, fine, go ahead. You know, you won't be at our practice, but in our head, we're like, you're practicing with your swing instructor, because that's the time. I think off season is the time to work on any technical golf if you need to. And then we go harder with workouts for the team, because there's time for recovery and things like that. And then that's when, for us as coaches, we'll go watch events. We have way more time to watch events. So,
and it's easy for you guys since you're in Florida. You guys get
the
winter. You guys can get
right. So there's a lot of big tournaments. I mean, I think I've only recruited maybe 3 times outside the state of Florida. Also because
Everybody
of our budget.
There in the winter.
Everybody comes there. I mean, even internationals like will come to Florida.
Well,
so it's perfect.
Academies and stuff. You know,
right.
down there as
right.
well.
Right. So exactly. Awesome. So it's a really good location.
Yeah, it's the golf place to be. Yeah.
Right.
What do you say? What are your kind of, I guess, your educational standards that you hold up for your athletes? And, you know, obviously school comes first. So like what are your standards say for that and regarding that?
So usually it seems like, especially in the other places I've been, it's like, let's see if they're talented, like let's see if they can shoot the numbers, then we'll kind of look at their school. Whereas us, we kind of have to make sure for sure that their academics are really good, because Rollins is a, you know, academically rigorous school. So it's sometimes they're called the Ivy League of the South.
Yeah.
So, you know, to be admitted, you have to have pretty high, you have to have pretty good academics. And then also, because we're not a fully funded for scholarships program, we really do encourage our players or our recruits to say, okay, you know, if you can get as high SAT as you can earn an academic scholarship, and you can stack it with your athletic scholarship. And also, it costs $70,000 a year to go to Rollins. So that's also one thing that we really have to consider when recruiting. If it's a family who can't quite afford $70,000, that's a lot of money. Yeah. I mean, over 4 years, that's a lot of money. And so the thing is they can't afford to not it's almost like they can't afford not to get an academic scholarship. And then when they're in school, it's like you need to keep that up to keep that scholarship. So I think for us, definitely, school is like for sure number one, because we also don't want to recruit someone who's not as good as they could be, and then they come to Rollins and then they struggle and then they can't hack it, and then, you know, it affects their golf too, and they're just unhappy. Yeah. So that's and it's kind of weird, because I'm not really used to that. So it's definitely like academics almost to me is like a first thing that I look at. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean there is a huge comparison from a school like Rollins to, you know, a school especially like Central Michigan. I mean, it's just academically it's very different. Right. Do you guys still fall under the 20 hours, 8 hours in season and off season? That's what I thought. Yes, and also, but I think the dates are kind of different-ish. But I think the biggest thing is that you can't, for me as a coach, I think the weirdest thing for me is that we can't give instructional advice. Like, we can't give lessons or instructional lessons to our players during the summer, whereas Division I can. So like if I wanted to work with my player instructionally, it's not possible. I wonder why that's I have no idea why it's different. I didn't know that. It's so random. There's so many small random rules that it's like, I don't understand what the difference is. Yeah, very random. So I know, like, you know, obviously you said you had a bigger team than normal. Like, what, you know, obviously on a small team there are a lot of things that can happen, you know, say drama and stuff like that. Like, what do you like to do to kind of like keep, you know, team bonding and stuff like that? Because, you know, when you're together all the time and traveling, you know how that is. Things can happen very quickly. Yeah, I think personally, I mean, this might be different for other programs, but personally, I think the best thing when it comes to like possible drama or just maybe like people who don't really try to hold themselves accountable or kind of give that pushback when you're trying to hold them accountable. That can be a problem if it's not addressed. And I think the best thing to do is like right in the beginning, make those expectations as clear as possible. In fact, as I'm, becoming more and more experienced as a coach, I'm realizing that needs to be an expectation for me right when I'm recruiting them, so that they understand. So that when if they eventually commit, it's like they already know. And so when I repeat myself, it's just like I'm reiterating myself.
Yeah.
So I think that's the best thing. And I've noticed where there is drama or things like that, it's when it wasn't quite clear.
Yeah.
So when it's crystal clear, it's like, well, let's go back to that meeting and look at all the notes that we have. And now, you can make your choice, and these are the consequences. So I think it's always hard. And I think something that I'm learning is that it's harder when parents are involved.
Oh, yeah.
But I've also heard from other schools where they're like, I just don't allow involvement of parents. And I'm like, wow, that must be great.
It's very different, especially for, people, especially I feel like it comes from like freshmen the most, because it's that difference between this isn't high school anymore, like they're adults, they're 18, they're their own person, like they have to learn to control things themselves, and no longer like they're gone from you, they're not under your household anymore.
Right. And it's just like they're growing adults, and I think something that helps with that. So you want to have the expectations, but then you also want to say, okay, what are you doing for your team to grow their self-awareness?
Yeah.
Because I think that's key. If they understand, if they know what's wrong, they'll know. But if they don't realize it, but that's really hard too, because if they've grown up that way for 18 years, it's kind of a hard thing. So I think it's important when you're recruiting to really try and figure that out.
Yeah, and I think it's, I think in today's society, it's getting harder too with like, parents and everything, because parents are extremely, extremely involved now more than ever.
Right. Which can be good, but it can be bad.
It can be, yeah, and it's kind of how it's hard. It's a hard distinction right now.
For sure.
So like, what do you guys do? Any, community programs or volunteering and stuff like that what you do with your team that you guys are involved in?
Yeah, so at Rollins, we do like a first tee type of thing. So we get the girls and we go to different first tees, because it's Florida. It's pretty easy to find first tee camps. And they're not really instructing the kids. They're more like just to have fun. And I think the kids like to see, and the girls. I think it's great for the young girls to see our players and be like, that could be you one day, that could be you in college one day. So I think that's fun. And then I think the girls also kind of have that, like, I know like a lot of the girls after the fact are like, oh my gosh, that was exhausting. And I'm like, yeah, can you imagine what it feels like to be a coach with y'all?
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, especially, like Catherine always loves doing the stuff at Christmas with secret families and, and wrapping gifts, and it's a lot of fun. And I think that's one thing that, like, it's always, it's your image, and that's, people love to see that out in the community.
Right.
It's awesome that you stay involved.
Yeah.
So like going back to that kind of the recruiting aspect, when you're looking at potential recruits, what do you look for, and like what do you think would be a good fit for your team and the program, and kind of the qualities that, like how are you distinguishing, this person could be, a good potential recruit, and this person I don't really think so.
Yeah, I think, like especially with COVID, things have changed in the dynamics a lot. But I guess in an overview of it, Division II is very different. I think I've definitely felt that, and I used to be one of those people who are like, oh, well, it's Division I. I'd rather go to Division, I'd rather go to Division I than Division II. Yeah. And I've learned that, well, there are Division II schools that are really competitive. Like they're comparable to some of the best Division I schools. And the like my boss likes to say, the NCAA championship trophy is the same size at Division 1 or Division 2.
Yeah, I mean, UIndy comes to our tournament every year and wins. So
Yeah, I mean, they're crazy, they're insane, and like, you
yeah.
know, it's interesting to like understand like that side of things, and then like how I used to be, I was like, I don't want to go to Division 2. I mean, I don't even think I ever applied to Division 2. It was
No,
just
I
applying
can
to
agree. I
Division
was the
1.
same way. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
was
so
approved
now
by
I've kind of,
UIndy, and I was just like, no.
nah.
But now I'm like, wow.
Right. And now I'm like, okay. And so I think it was only after I graduated from Central Michigan where I was like, you know, you have to be open minded, and like now you know better. You've been an ex-player for 2 years. So anyway, so I think the thing is that you have to understand that, and you have to understand, okay, so how do you give that awareness to recruits and their parents, because even parents are kind of like, well, it's Division 2, you know, where is that, what's that anchor sign, Rollins, where is Rollins? And it's like, we've won 13 national championships, and then they start listening up, you know. So I think that's one aspect when recruiting here, my experience. And then the other thing is that it's not like, it's easy to spot the talent, like the best kids out there in junior tournaments, but we can't go for those best players. They're not really going to sign with us. So it's like, where do you find that middle? And then also, like I said, with the academics, you know, so we have to, I mean, for us, we really do truly have to fit for that player. I mean, I just don't think anyone can really come to Rollins. Just because of the complexities of like Division 2, we're smaller, we're a really tiny school. It's quite a lot of money to come here, and then it's academically rigorous. So it's like there are all those intersectionalities that we have to kind of like make sure that those recruits that we're recruiting can do that, can handle, or, you know, can align with that. So I think that's where it is. But in my head, anywhere I go, I always want to recruit kids who are better than our current number 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the only
That's a
way I
great way
think
to
we
put
could
it,
really
yeah.
improve. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, I guess, say the biggest differences are, you know, between where you're at now and, you know, where you were at Central Michigan being the grad assistant? Like where the biggest differences between, you know, being that Division 2 and then being at the Division 1 level?
I think I've noticed really quickly that Division 2, there's not a lot of support staff. So you're juggling a lot of different roles. I mean, I feel like I juggle a lot of roles, and, you know, when I think of like visits at like a Power 5 school, they have I mean, you're just focused on the coaching, literally. Yeah. And there's support staff for every other thing possible you can think of. Whereas I think, I mean, it wasn't at Central Michigan, it wasn't quite like that, but I mean, you know, it was kind of flexible. It was half and half, you know, like, yeah, mid-major, you know, you kind of, there are staff to support you, and there's a way bigger athletic department than we have at Rollins. I mean, Rollins, you can meet everyone in 5 minutes. So I think it's a lot. So you kind of, or for me, I was like, I really have to understand my time management and what's the priorities, but what I really need to make sure I get done. So I think, you know, in a way, and like you also don't have the you know, the money obviously is nowhere near comparable to a mid-major or even a Power 5 school. Like, absolutely not.
Yeah, because you don't have golf scholarships, or do you? You have a certain amount, or
We do. Division 3 doesn't.
okay.
So Division 2, I believe, this is bad that I don't know, but I think it's 4 point something, 4.4, 4.6 is a full is labeled as a fully funded women's program.
Okay.
Whereas 6 is Division 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's a little.
Yeah. Yeah. And like also the other thing, you just triggered a thought. Also, the rules are slightly different. And also some of like the way we play our championships, like postseason, is a little bit different structured than Division One.
Mm-hmm. What are those
So
differences?
I'd say those are the. So I think we're trying to do. We don't have the same, like the national championship right at the end with the match play.
Mm-hmm.
So that never used to happen in Division Two.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're changing it to like, stroke play then match play, but it's still a little different. It's called medal match play. So you still count your score, but it's match play. Whereas in Division One, that match play is match play. You're not doing medal match play.
That's really weird.
Yeah, and I think they're following the structure of the Division Two men's postseason. Mm-hmm. But it's like, wouldn't you follow the Division One women's structure?
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know. There's a lot of like this. Also how like the way you qualify into regionals is very complicated. People have tried to explain this to me a lot of times, and I'm still like, that doesn't make sense.
I don't think
so. Yeah. So. Yeah, so I think those are the subtle differences, but I mean, I think money is a big difference, like you can't imagine like the football games on Power 5 and like Rollins doesn't even have a football team. I know some Division 2 schools do have football games, but it's like very small colleges, not a lot of like budget where you can get like a ton of gear and stuff like that. So the way you attract recruits is going to look very different to mid-major Division 1 or even like a bigger Division 1.
Yeah. Do you say like your biggest, I guess, I'm trying to, not like catchphrase, but like what do you like pride yourself on? Do you pride it on like your academics and being, the Ivy League of the South?
Yeah, the academics, and it's so weird. I've actually grown to know that Rollins in Florida is very well known. Like people are like, oh, Rollins, like for the school.
For being,
like, very known school.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing that is huge that like nobody can really deny, where parents and recruits that didn't know us before start to actually like pay attention, is when the fact that we've had 13 national championships at the program, right? So it's like, okay, there's success here. And then also the location is perfect. It's like a golf hub. It's the golf mecca. It's Florida. If you don't have a swing instructor, you can find one 100%. You're in Orlando. We're close to Disney. There's so much to do, right? And then the Winter Park area is really cute. It's like it doesn't even feel like you're in Florida. It's super cute. So, and then the campus is like a Spanish type of architecture. So I think when people, our catch is when our recruits come to visit campus, they're like, what? This is Rollins? And it's like, yeah, this is Rollins. It's a fun place. Yeah. So I think so weather, location, access in terms of like, it's a golf mecca, and then things to do. So quality of life, the real estate there is incredible. And just the success that the program has had, and then the known academics of Rollins. I think that's how we really get our recruits.
What course do you guys play? What's your home course down there?
So we play a few courses. We have a small 9-hole golf course that's like literally a 10-minute walk from our campus. It's called Winter Park 9. Really short, but the greens are pretty hard. They're all like elevated greens, and so the short game's what gets you. And then another course that's 10-minute drive is Interlochen Country Club. It's a private club, so they're all members there. We get to play there and practice there. We actually practice a lot of our short game there. And then we also play at Country Club of Orlando. It's a 30-minute drive, but it's a beautiful course, and that's where we also host our tournaments. And then there are a ton of other courses that we can sometimes play, but those are usually the 3 we alternate with.
I worked at Disney after college, so I was super familiar with like the Winter Garden and Winter Park area.
Okay. Yeah, it's crazy. Like I was like, where am I? Like, this is not Florida.
you're
So
close to anything, and like the beach is only
yeah,
2 hours away if you want to go to Tampa or anything
right,
like that. Yeah, it's awesome.
right,
I miss it. I want to come
yeah.
back.
Yeah, you should.
I know. So, what do you think, or I guess regarding your like budget, like how is your budget constructed and like kind of each season and like kind of what all does that entail and how do you guys go about figuring that?
I don't think our budget is really like, so don't quote me on this because I'm not 100% sure. I'm only the assistant coach, but I don't think it's allocated to seasons, but I do know we have kind of like two budget in terms of we have our operating budget that should really cover all our operating costs.
Mhm.
And then we also have our fundraising account where we can fundraise and put money in there for anything else that we need.
Mhm.
Um, I think surprisingly, I think we have the most competitive budget in our conference, if not the best.
Mhm.
So, for us, I don't feel like that's really a problem for us at Division Two for Rollins. I don't think that's a problem. But then it's just obviously like a fiscal year. So every fiscal
Yeah.
year,
Yep.
it's new. So
Awesome.
that's pretty much all I'll say about it.
No, you're good. And then I guess you talked a little bit about the pandemic and being able to capsize off, the recruiting aspect of like
Mhm.
Division One. I guess like kind of like are there any other ways that it's, affected being a college coach? Did Division Two receive the extra year of eligibility as like the
Yeah,
Division One did as
yeah.
well?
So that's been very interesting because I feel like, that's changed for, I mean, all programs who are, giving their senior or anybody, any senior who's taking that extra year. I mean, they completely like, I feel like shuffled around in terms of that. And also that transfer portal with, how
Yeah.
people can easily transfer now.
Mhm.
So it's kind of wild in that sense. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like coaches are like, holy, just check the transfer portal. So that's been interesting to learn because like for me, I feel like that's normal, but for other coaches who've been coaching for a while, it's like, this is not normal,
Yeah.
but I'm used to it, but they're like, no, we did not start this way. But I think for me personally, I just decided to take, in the crux of the pandemic where we couldn't do anything, like we were all sent home, and a lot of colleges were like that, where you can't come into work, you can kind of work remotely.
Were you
But
guys all
even then,
virtual? Did you guys go virtual?
so this was an interesting thing for Rollins, for school wise, they never had online courses. Like they're famous for not having online courses
Okay.
because they want to have like
Wow.
that intimate type of small classrooms and things like that. And it was kind of like their flex in a way.
Mhm.
But then that was a hard thing when the pandemic hit because it's like, there's no way we'll be able to do that,
Yeah.
So they did start virtual learning, but I think it was kind of difficult. Obviously, if all these professors have been teaching in person, virtual is going to be hard. I mean,
And they're probably like
technology is
very like old school type.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. So a lot of our kids were
Stuck in
like, I don't think he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
But they've worked it out, and now this past semester we had vaccinations available for any of our students who wanted to get both doses of their vaccinations. So now next semester, if people have had both doses, they can do a lot more on campus. So
Yeah.
that's kind of good. I did not know what your original question was.
Just how it's affected being like a college coach.
Oh, so yeah. So personally, when COVID hit and we really couldn't do anything, I mean, this was the summer, that's when we're recruiting. So it's like, there's really nothing to do,
Oh.
even if we're working remotely. I just decided to, work on myself and just, be a better coach and use that time. Cause I was like, I'm not going to get this time, ever.
No.
So I just worked on myself, was working out more, taking courses or just, reading more about how to be a better coach, connecting with people and things like that as much as I could.
Yeah.
So.
And then did you guys have a lot of your girls take their 5th years?
Actually, we had none of our students take a 5th
Really?
year. Yeah. So, but some of our seniors, well, some of our players who are not yet seniors, they're like, they've already come to us to say, you know, I might just take that extra 5th year. So we'll see.
Has it recruited or has it affected your recruiting for like say this year? And did you already have, you know, recruits?
So because none of our senior, we only had one senior and she didn't want a 5th year. So I think it's just like along the way, we have to kind of consider like, okay, if our junior currently wants her 5th year, we need to like take that into consideration.
Yeah.
So I think it should be good. I think ours is just a little different just because our grad school is not a typical grad school we don't have typical grad school programs in which like
Yeah.
we can help you, you know, like our schedules do clash all the time with grad school and our playing season. So, you know, it's kind of like an interesting situation, but so far I don't really think it's really hurt our recruiting.
Do you see like probably a lot of them transferring out to go to grad school somewhere else and use that year?
Maybe. I think some of them want to stay if they can, and I mean if it works out they could probably stay, but I really don't know what that looks like, especially what, you know, the head coach is thinking. I really don't know. But I think we do. I mean, I've been considering it like, okay, well, and I think we've got it lined up to where if someone wants to stay, we could probably do that. We'll be able to. We'll just be a big roster.
Yeah. I mean, because I know it's been, you know, really hard on like our, you know, all of ours have decided to take their 5th years. And so it was a bunch of
How
like,
many seniors do you have?
we had one graduate, 2 graduate, 1 staying,
Mm-hmm.
Liz, and then 1 graduated. She's nursing, so she got a job, and you know that's a popular field right now, so she didn't have a problem doing
Yeah.
it. And then we have
Okay.
juniors that have that were going to be seniors this year that have already decided taking their 5th year. So we have 2 that will be staying after this year for another year, and pretty much everybody on our roster.
Wow.
So we'll have 9 this year, and we only have 1 coming in next year,
Okay.
because of, you know, we had a lot of shuffling to do with scholarships, so
Oh
it was a
yeah.
little messy in the fall figuring
Right.
everything out and
Right.
scholarship wise, just because, you know, you have to balance it, and
Right.
you know, people want to stay and you want to offer them what they have, and then it's like, okay, well, I gotta decrease this and add this and
Right.
replace
Right.
this, and so it was a lot of math and that we had to do, and you know, it ended up working out. We finally figured it out, but it made it very, very hard, especially, you know, you get all these emails and stuff all the time for recruiting, and it's just like I don't have anything.
Yeah.
It's
There's
just
no
all the
spots.
spots are full. Like,
Right.
especially, you know, the
Right.
poor class of 2022, I mean, they're really hitting the brunt of it all. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad. I'm actually working for the Indiana Golf Association right now,
Okay.
internship, and for junior golf, and you know, I see all these kids, and I'm, you know, I talk to them about like, you know, their, you know, who they're talking to and this and that, and you know, a lot of them are saying the same things like, oh, people don't have spots, and
Spots. Yeah.
it's like it's like sad because, you know, these poor kids are like, it's struggle. I mean, it's really hard.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. That's what I think is freaking all the coaches who are experienced to be like, it's going to be a domino effect if we
Mm-hmm.
keep letting like another year. But I mean, obviously, like for those people who didn't get their senior year quite there, it's like, well, you know, it's almost like they do deserve it, but it's like then now we do have to consider what that means now, right? And so like you said, I think the 2022s, I think we're only going to be able to get 1 or 2 2022s, but like even that, like it's still a maybe because we just don't know what that looks like still,
Yeah.
you know.
It's gonna be a while before it's all back to normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think, I guess, you know, kind of like the golf industry itself, what do you think overall separates, you know, golf, like college golf from, you know, other college sports from your experience?
Well, so I haven't actually, so obviously I was like this naive person not knowing anything about college golf and getting into
You
it.
learned
So
so far, I guess.
yeah, I don't know a ton about the other sports, but it just seems like, you know, we're talking about golf courses. A lot of the places I've been, it's like we don't practice like on campus like other sports, you know, so an AD could just kind of walk in on practice and be like, hey, basketball girls, or, you know, hey, tennis, but like that's not really going to happen with golf, right? And then even like spectators and stuff, you don't really see that. So but I do think golf seems to be relatively easy to fundraise. You know, it's not like track and field where I'm like, how do you guys fundraise? Like, how do you guys do it? You know, unless you're like extremely good. And then also I think with golf, I mean, just how much it's accessible after college, like, you know, old folks can play and business people can play and doctors and dentists and lawyers love to play. So, you know, like even if, you know, our kids do decide to become, you know, something else in the workforce, I think they'll still probably be playing golf, and so they'll still kind of be able to be part of the program, which I don't know if that can really be said about other sports. You know, and then I also think that, you know, golf is, I feel like, ever changing, and we're realizing what the next advantage is. You know, like a few years ago it was like your physical, like, you know, you need to be really fit and you need to take advantage of that, and you could, you know, maybe hit it, I don't know, 50 yards more. So it's like, oh, what's the next thing going to be, you know? And I think it's really cool. Right. And I think it's really cool, you know, because I think it does help us, like, you know, or our players when they graduate, because, like, you know, it's good to for them. Like, I never really worked out before college golf, and then I did, and then I started to realize, even just being a coach, how, you know, your physical is really important. And so I've started, like, you know, working out and, like, you know, being a little more conscious about my health, just because it's important whether I'm a coach or a golfer or not, you know? So I think that's really cool. So I'm curious to see, like, what's the next thing. And also, I don't know, maybe golf might look different in, I don't know, 20 years, who knows?
It's everything's, it's always changing, you know, especially
Right.
the rules and, you know, what you can do, and it's crazy. I know my favorite's always when people ask, like, you work out to play golf, like, what do you do? I'm
Is
like,
golf a sport?
everything else does. What do you mean?
Yeah. And that's when you take those people to the golf course and get them to walk and push their carts
You
18
play
holes,
36
and they're like,
one day. Like, you walk 15 miles a day.
in my senior year, we had like a supervisor come, and she used to be a volleyball coach, and she like just came to support us at the conference. And we were like, oh, will you walk with us and, like, you know, walk on the golf course and support us? And she was like, yeah. And I remember when she walked with me for a little bit, she's like, Dev, she's like, I am so freaking tired. My legs are burning. I don't know how you guys carry your bags. She's like, you know what I want to do? I want to get the basketball team and the golf team to swap. You guys go to basketball practice, and they should come to a golf practice and walk for 5 hours a day.
Yeah.
She was like, I didn't realize. She said, I mean, I knew it was somewhat physically demanding, but I didn't know it was like a marathon.
Yeah, and it's like, we don't use golf carts, and they're like,
right. And sometimes we're in like the rain, and then we're in the cold, and then we're in the heat, and then we're in the humidity. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
People don't get it unless they do it. That's one thing I've learned. Until you do it, you have no clue.
Yeah, for sure.
So what do you, I guess, like, what type of characteristics and qualifications do you think are needed to be like a college golf coach? Excuse me.
So this is something I've like had a hard time understanding. So when I first was interested, a lot of people said, you got to get your master's degree. Mm-hmm. But when I do look up some coaches, I'm like, they don't have a master's degree. So, like, you know, did I waste my time? But like, for me as an international, you know, the best thing I could have done was to get a master's degree for visa things, you know, like, you have to prove that, you know, your intention was always to be what you want to do. Mm-hmm. Whatever, that's another story. But I mean, I think there's so many ways to show that you're able to do the job. But I think the thing that I've realized for younger coaches, like our age or a little bit older, is that it's always like you know, but I think that's across all industries, is, you know, we're looking for experience. And it's like, well, you give me the job, I will get experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think to some point you can work hard, get as many, I don't know, qualifications if you want to say that. But then at the end of the day, I think if you have that experience, that's what's the meat of it, I think.
Yeah.
Or what I'm hearing from other people.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I think that that's the hardest part, especially in, for the younger generation, like us, like it's hard to get experience if you can't ever have the
Yeah.
opportunity to get it. And I
Right.
think
Right.
that's where it's really hard to,
Right.
and that's where it comes into who
Right.
to help.
Right. And I think that's huge. And I mean, I think it's a kind of like you got to finesse it almost,
Yeah.
like you got to, in however way you can, you got to show that you can do the job and you can do it. And there are different ways, but I think you also, or I guess my advice to anybody entering, I would just say don't change who you are, because that's a whole nother thing. And then you'll eventually hit a wall and you'll have to unlearn a lot again and, start from scratch ultimately. But
absolutely agree with that. Yeah, for sure. So I guess kind of my last question is like, what recommendations or advice would you give to, graduate students pursuing, to be a college coach?
I think because a lot of my friends, or not really friends, but past players almost, or past teammates, decided to go into grad assistant coaching. And a lot of them, I don't think there was one who said, well, I definitely want to be a coach, and this is just my confirmation to see if I really want to do it. And so it's almost like, give yourself the grace that you don't have to be get into college coaching, but like really try and put your best foot forward to get your feet wet, to really understand what it takes to be a coach. Because I think if you love it, it can be super rewarding, but at the same time, it's not the general rewarding type of job. A lot of the time it's hard work, and there's a lot of personalities you have to deal with, inside and outside the team. And sometimes it's just super duper hard, but sometimes it's like everything's aligning, everybody's getting along, everybody's improving, and this is the best thing. And I love this, and sometimes it's like, I love this, but it's just really hard right now.
Yeah.
But I also think it can teach you a lot about yourself. And just like, I feel like I've grown so much in the last 2 years, because it's really like pushed me to my limit. And like, it's forced me to say, who are you? What do you want? What is it that you truly want? And, what aligns with you? What takes away your energy? What gives you energy?
Yeah.
And things like that. So I would just say, get your feet as wet as possible, make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes, even as a GA. And then just try and talk to your head coach and, maybe ask questions and pick their mind and their experience. I would recommend it that way. And anybody else you probably know who's a little closer to you to give you a bit more of an honest answer.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I don't have anything else, but I really appreciate you taking the time to
Of course.
chat, and I hope everything goes well and you guys have a great season this year.
Yeah, you guys too. I hope everything's going well at Ball State, and please say hello to Catherine for me. She is the best. She's one of my favorite coaches. She's just a good person.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes,
she really will you if
very
you
highly.
ask her.
So I really appreciate it, and thanks for your time, and have safe travels back to Orlando.
Also, Morgan, what are you, would you be able to share with what you get? Like, I'm curious to see what other coaches said, if that's possible.
Yeah.
You don't have to send me names, but I'm just curious to see your end kind of result of all of this.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Really
I'll keep in touch.
Well, thank you, Morgan. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.